fight back.
Yeah! When mad rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up and fight back.
Mad rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up and fight back.
1, 2,
3, 4.
and
Any more. 5, 6, 7, 8. Every mind is really great.
That's right! Up here, in the corner. Blue shirt, roll the blue shirt. Blue shirt. 1, 2, 3, 4. Won't be patient anymore. 5, 6, 7, 8.
Every mind is really great.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Won't be patient. Now.
What do we want?
Mad pride.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Mad pride.
When do we want it?
Now.
Hey. 1, 2, 3, 4. Won't be patient anymore. 5, 6, 7, 8. Every mind is really great. 1, 2, 3, 4. Won't be patient anymore. 5, 6, 7, 8. Every mind is really great. Do it again. Do it again. What do we want? Ho ho! This narrow normal has to go. Hey ho! This narrow normal has to go. Hey hey!
Ho ho! This narrow normal has to go. Hey hey! Ho ho! This narrow normal has to go. Hey hey! Ho ho! This narrow normal has to go. Hi, Melanie.
When do we want it? Now. What do we want?
Mad pride.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Mad pride.
When do we want it?
Now. Oh yeah.
Make sure to get some water.
So we want everybody to enjoy some music from Feminine Aggression, gather, get some food. We'll start the program in about 15 minutes. Thank y'all.
Thanks for having us. We're from Western Massachusetts. Very glad to be here. I don't know if our music will help you digest, but I hope so. We have some songs about madness and queerness for you. Enjoy.
But you don't know a thing about magazines.
We're wondering if anyone has a spare cinder block or something very heavy for the bass. All right, we'll continue. This song's called Coercion Perversion.
I want to get protein.
We have a couple of more songs. You can start eating after this if you haven't yet. The next two songs are about calling out Christo-fascism, which feels pretty relevant today. And the next one is about being young and gay and trying to figure it out. So then we'll pass it off to Erica and the amazing Vermont crew here.
How's it going? Good. Like to play a tool song.
Okay, we have one more while we're waiting for some VIPs.
He was in the mood to cause trouble that day. Oh, yeah. His partner was like, I want to eat raw.
Okay. Yeah, okay, great. So, yeah, I just want to say we're going to do a cover song by Marianne Faithfull. Any Marianne Faithfull songs? Fans out there? Does anyone not know who Marianne Faithfull is? Some of y'all? Okay.
Read my book, Why Marianne Faithfull Matters.
Yeah, Tanya wrote a book about her in case you need to know.
Available
Yeah.
everywhere.
We're going to try a song that
Yeah, 5 o'clock.
that's called Before the Poison that I think has some themes relevant to Mad Frog.
And I got really mad.
Before the poison, I wasn't down. If you've been down, if you've been around, band is Feminine Aggression. We're from Western Massachusetts, so very, very, very grateful to be up here with y'all in Burlington.
That's a good thing, man. That's a good job.
Well, I gotta practice.
Good.
Yeah, we like to cut some of these songs out. Yeah.
Oh, nice. How long do you guys do?
Willow was a soprano. Rooney is our friend who is training me to opposite. You messed that one up. Color is
Yeah.
That's alright. Yep.
Yeah, no, I can say hi to my raccoon.
Hello and welcome to Mad Pride!
No, I can.
I'm sorry. Welcome to Mad Pride!
I already know the song.
So thank you, Feminine Aggression, for that wonderful, get us all in the mood to be mad and proud. So we have a wonderful lineup of great speakers, leaders, to talk about what it's like to be proud of being mad. But first, little housekeeping. Sorry, y'all. We have water. It's a hot day out. We're all feeling it. Take care of yourselves. Get some shade. Get some water. If you're overwhelmed, take care of yourself. All I can say, you're not being rude. If you need to leave, do it. If you need to go to the bathroom, bathrooms are over there. So, if you need, do what you need to do to take care of yourself. If you're overwhelmed, find somebody with a volunteer t-shirt. We're here to help. That's what we do. We're a community. We help each other, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So my name is Erica. I'm mad and I'm proud. All right. So first up, to get this party started, I'm going to bring up Wilda White from Mad Freedom. The proclamation. Wilda, are you in the crowd?
I'm here, and I have here a proclamation from the mayor declaring. Well, I'll read it to you. We'll see what it says. Hold on. So the mayor is not here. The mayor is actually in Italy with COVID. So I'm now reading the proclamation in his absence. So the proclamation says, whereas all people from all walks of life and age groups face difficulties and challenges in their mental health at some time during their lives. And whereas people with mental health challenges experience stigma, discrimination, and disparate health outcomes. And whereas there are Vermont organizations run for and by individuals with mental health challenges who support and advocate with and on behalf of others with mental health challenges. And whereas these organizations fight against discrimination, injustice, and advocate for rights to improve the quality of life for psychiatric survivors, service users, ex-patients, neurodiverse, and mad people, and folks the world has deemed, quote, mentally ill. And whereas every human being has intrinsic worth, is entitled to dignity and respect, and therefore should have pride and live without shame or in silence. And whereas Mad Pride Day is celebrated annually in cities and countries around the globe, beginning in 1981, when the New York Mental Patients Liberation Alliance selected July 14th, Bastille Day, to mark Mad Pride Day. Bastille Day is the anniversary of the storming of the Bastille in Paris, France in 1789 to free prisoners, including 2 individuals with psychiatric labels who are being held there for that reason. And whereas Mad Pride Day emerged out of many historical movements for self-determination and dignity, including Black liberation, women's liberation, mad liberation, gay rights, anti-psychiatry, ex-psychiatric patients, self-reliance, anti-poverty, consumer survivor, service user, and other movements, now therefore I, Moreau Weinberger, Mayor of the City of Burlington, do hereby proclaim July 16, 2022 to be Mad
Pride Day in the city of Burlington and commit our city to delivering the protections, safety, and equality to all so that everyone can realize their full potential and enjoy the full promise of America. And it's signed Moreau Weinberger, Mayor. Okay, so I'm not Moreau anymore. I'm now Wilda. My name is Wilda White, and I'm a member of the Mad Pride Day Planning Committee. And a day like this could not happen without a lot of support. And I'm here today to say thank you to those who made today possible. And I'm old enough to have come from a generation where thank yous are extremely important. I was raised on sending thank you notes, and I still do to this day. And so I'm going to spend a little time just making sure that people are thanked, because living in gratitude is a path to happiness and a very fulfilling and rich life. So I first want to thank our Trailblazer sponsors who donated a significant amount of money to help make this day possible. The first is Disability Rights Vermont. Can we give a hand to Disability Rights Vermont? LMW Design, which is a design firm, which designed the t-shirts, the brochures, the website, on short notice. And so we want to give a big round of applause to LMW Design. The UVM Health Network was also a Trailblazer sponsor. And they were really pleased to have been asked. And they responded with a very generous donation and really wanted nothing in return. They just said, well, thank you so much for thinking of us. And so, sometimes we don't ask. And I think that should be a lesson that we should ask. I think people who kind of work with our community should give back to that community, and that's what UVM Health Network did. VAMHAR also made a very generous donation. And they really weren't asked. They volunteered. So thank you, VAMHAR. Vermont Psychiatric Survivors. Yay, Vermont Psychiatric Survivors made a very generous donation. And we thank you very much for that donation. You were our seed capital that let us know that we were going to be able to make our fundraising goals and got us off to a good start. We so much appreciate your support. They also loaned us the black tent canopies, which made it possible for us not to have to buy them or rent them, so we thank you for that. And we also want to thank, last but not least, our Trailblazer, Vermont Center for Independent Living, who had three staff members being paid to be on the planning committee, who were also our fiscal agent. So every time I spent money, they wrote the check or sent the credit card in to pay it, and did all last minute things to make sure that this day happened. So thank you very much, Vermont Center for Independent Living. I also want to thank the Mad Pride Planning Committee, and I'm just going to do it really quickly. Not because I want to get through it, but because we have a long day and you're sitting in the hot sun. But Clara Dumont from Pathways Vermont, Sarah Launderville, the Executive Director of Vermont Center for Independent Living, Linda Malidi, who's also with VCIL, Calvin Melwin, who's here in the room today, Nick Moreland with VCIL, Chris Nile with Pathways, Lindsay Owen with Disability Rights Vermont, Claire Peddle with Disability Rights Vermont, Erica Ryle with Another Way Community Center, Camille Royce with Howard Center, Ken Russell with Another Way, and Wilda. I'm thanking you too, Wilda. And then I also want to thank our volunteers who got here early this morning to set all this up. Edward Burke, Wright Cronin, Danielle LaRoe, Lori Demers, Sarah Fish, Lucy Gluck, who's my longest friend and dearest friend in the world. Thank you, Lucy. Millie Launderville. Thank you, Millie, our youngest volunteer. Derek Malbro, who was always rushing to take things out of my hand and step up today, thank you. Lois Nile and Ward Nile, who put up all the tent canopies. Joe Rowell, who's done our sound. Patrick Stanton, Patricia Tedesco, and Daniel Towle, who's been our troubleshooter, expediter, utility fillman, who's done everything we've asked at the last moment, who picked up the food, among other things. Thank you so much to all of our volunteers. We also have other sponsors who gave money. They're listed in our programs, and I'll come back later and say a few words about them too. So we're going to stop our thank yous, but please, if you have an opportunity to thank people, please do it. It's up to you now, Erica, to take us on to the next stage.
So I was, like all of you, I was diagnosed when I was mad when I was 14. And, you know, I am very proud of that. For one thing, I've met a community of people that love me for who I am. But like all of you, I want the same things that everybody has. I want a community. I want to go to work. I want to go shopping. And one thing, we don't want to be medicated and we don't want to be silenced. That's why we're here today. And we have speakers that are leaders in our community. And I'm going to start introducing them right now. And you're going to hear this a lot because I'm very honored that in my road to finding my proudness and my madness, that I have met each and every one of these people. And the first one is Chris Hansen. Chris really needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce her anyway. Chris and I met doing intentional peer support training. Chris is from New Zealand. She's done a ton of work. And I can go through her biography, which will be a book, but I'm going to let Chris talk a little bit about the work she's done and the work that continues to be done to make sure that we still have mad pride in our hearts. Take it away, Chris.
Thank you, Erica. Kia ora tātou katoa from New Zealand. My name is Chris Hansen. I live here in Burlington, Vermont, in co-housing, and I'm a co-director of Intentional Peer Support. My chief qualification for being here is my own history of being seen as mad enough to lock up at a significant time in my life, when what had happened was I had experienced a whole lot of losses. The cascading subsequent losses in my life of job, secure housing, relationships, the need to use the food shelf and charity services, and being on disability for many years has launched me into this work. I know for myself that had somebody sat me down and asked what was going on and what I thought might have made a difference, I might have stayed connected to my community, kept my job, and my life would have been so different. Actually, glad it's not. Although I was in a lot of distress and I was scaring people, although I was still able to communicate, and an outcome that was really different to what had happened could have been created. I know that this can happen because I've seen it happen to hundreds of times, and I know of thousands more for whom this has been possible. So for the past 16 years or so, intentional peer support has been my work, and that's about developing community-based alternatives to psychiatric hospitals and to the deeper clutches of the mental health system. It's about connecting people with their lives and with their families and the world, their communities of choice, and teaching a framework through which to think about relationships that are focused on being present and connecting, no matter how difficult things are, rather than on helping, coercing, or doing to, through the difficult times and sometimes extreme emotions, experiences, and behaviours that a good proportion of us experience. I believe that coercion driven by fear is toxic and traumatic, so the focus of my work has been on being present in ways that seek to connect, to listen for what's going on and what's happened, and what meaning has been made, and also being willing to share our own stories and to ask for what we need. I'm committed to building relationships that enable all of us to find ways to stay connected in our lives, rather than being drugged, locked up, tased, or even killed. John is a person I knew who would regularly go and lie horizontally across the line of the highway because he felt sure it would bring peace to a war-torn part of the world. First time this happened, police were called, he was cuffed, put in the police van and spent time in forensic services. Second time, mental health was called and he spent months in the hospital. Both times he lost his job, his house, most of his possessions and his sense of who he was. But the third time it happened, a stranger courageously walked to the middle of the road, held up his hands to stop the traffic, bent down, grabbed his hand and whispered, "Come on mate, let's go and have a cup of coffee," which he did. This time there was no hospital, no job loss, just a bunch of conversations, which was sometimes scary and sometimes difficult. But I tell this story because that's the sort of connection I know is possible. So to me, Mad Pride is about being willing to own and celebrate my own madness and that of those in my community, even when it's hard and scary, rather than locking up, dragging up, shooting, or putting us away. It's about being willing to own our own madness and not being ashamed of it. About seeing distress, extreme states, feelings, beliefs, and behaviours as normal responses to the madness in our world and nothing to be ashamed of. So let's move beyond seeing our well-being as the responsibility solely of medical profession as embodied by clinicians, hospitals and pharmaceuticals, and collectively find ways to take responsibility for creating communities which are committed to sharing risk and responsibility and working to support one another to live well, honouring and connecting with our differences. Some say the word namaste can be translated as in the divine in me honours the divine in you. If the divine is all-encompassing, it also includes our madness and our extremes. So for Mad Pride, I say namaste. The mad person in me sees and honours the mad person in you and in all of us. Namaste.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Chris. I'm going to bring back Wilda Wright. Wilda. So can we bring Cal Moen up?
All right, Cal.
Yay, Cal. Thank you, Cal, for being flexible.
I was just typing some notes for what I was going to say, so I hope I'm ready enough. So today is a day of celebration and a day of joy for our community, which makes me a little uncomfortable. I also just want to be really real. I do want to celebrate and I do want to experience joy, and I also want to be real about how I have been feeling lately and how I feel often, which is exemplified by just a lot of conversations that I've had recently. Every kind of real conversation I've had recently has basically funneled down to kind of the same topics. Just what is on a lot of our minds, looking around and just saying, like, what is going on? You know, what is going on in the Supreme Court? What is going on in the economy? And are we being protected? Are we going to be safe? Are we going to be okay? And I will say that it is days like today, and I'm so glad that we're doing this again after not being together in this way since 2019 was the last time in Brattleboro. Was anybody there? Yes, yes you were. Because it's days like this that do remind me of what it is that we have been doing and what we're going to be continuing to do. Is that we're going to keep relying on each other. We're going to keep building community together. Just historically, over several decades, psychiatric survivors, mad people, we have not necessarily just sat around and waited for the government to pass just laws. We haven't sat around and waited for the mental health system to grant us dignity and choice. We have fought for it, we have marched for it, and we have built our own communities and our own supports because we know how to take care of each other and ourselves on our own terms. And at the same time, there are some promising efforts underway, like in the official channels, to create some infrastructure that could really meet some needs. In Vermont, there's work being done to form a network of peer respites. So a place to go in a crisis that could avert traumatizing institutionalization. Exciting stuff is going on in Northampton that I think maybe Sean is going to talk to us about later. So there is definitely effort on that level that is promising. And I guess what brings me back to the assurance and the celebration and the joy that I can access is not that siren. It's the fact that those of us that society has dismissed and displaced, that we have so much to share with the world, especially now that more and more people are looking around and asking, like, what do we do? What is coming? What is happening? Because we have been there, and we're gonna do what we have always done. We're gonna show up, we're gonna bring food, we're gonna do childcare, we're gonna march in the streets, we're gonna plant gardens, we're gonna share skills and build family, and we're gonna hold each other. And that is our revolution. And it is already in motion, and it is not stopping.
Thank you so much, Cal. And now I'm going to bring up Wilda White.
Thank you, Cal, for going out of order, although I might have probably should have gone in the right order because now I have to follow you and follow that, which means I probably I'm doing what I told everyone not to do, ad lib. So today is a really exciting day for me because two things. One is I always had struggled for a long time with being labeled as a person with a mental illness. And I was shame around it. And I was confused about why I had shame around it because, you know, I'm gay, I don't feel shame about that. I'm black and I'm supposed to feel shame about that, but I'm not. But I was kind of really confused about why I felt so much shame about that. And then two things happened. One is I was talking to a former colleague of mine after I got fired after a psychotic manic episode, asking him to help me get a new job and explaining that I had had a psychotic manic episode, which is why I got fired from my last job. And he told me, you cannot tell anybody ever that you had a psychotic manic episode because that's something to be ashamed of. And I was like, whoa. And then I sued my psychiatrist and we were at the jury trial, and I wanted to ask the jurors if they had ever had any mental health treatment. And she said I wasn't allowed to ask the jurors that because that's too shameful. And it was those two events that caused me to shed my own shame. It made me realize the power of shame in keeping us under control. And that the most political, rebellious, radical thing I could be was to be proud of being a person with a psychiatric history. And from that point on, I no longer had this shame, and I no longer had, I was just free. I was so incredibly free. And to the point when I wanted to start an organization that would fought against discrimination against people with psychiatric histories. And deciding what to name it, I selected Mad Freedom. Not because of, this word mad, a lot of people in our community hate being called mad, hate being called crazy, hate being called people with mental illness. But I think that I call myself mad, not because it accurately describes who I am, just like none of the other labels accurately describe who I am. But when I call myself mad, I'm saying whether or not I'm mad, I am a human being, and I am entitled to my own humanity, my dignity, and respect. Taking on these labels that people give us is really important in figuring out who we are, to interrogate those terms and figure out who we are. But don't think that because we call ourselves mad, that means that's who you are. It means regardless about whether you're mad, you are still entitled to the same rights, the same dignity, the same aspirations, the same passions, the same fulfilling life as anybody else who walks this planet. And one of the things I decided was, there are people who, who talk about when they're well and they love themselves, but then when they're not, when they're in an altered state or psychotic, as I've used to describe what I was going through, somehow they don't love that person who's psychotic. Somehow that person was crazy. They other that person. But no, we love our whole selves. We love ourselves, whether crazy or well, whether manic or well. We love our whole selves, and you cannot separate that person from you. There's something to be learned there. And so the world is a challenging place. And it's hard to figure out what to do. But what you can do, what every one of us can do, the most radical thing we can do is to be who we are. Is to say it loud. I am mad and I'm proud. Let's say it. Say it loud. I'm mad and I'm proud. And when you can say it loud that you are mad and you're proud, you are on your way to personal prosperity. And you are on your way to making this a planet that is kinder and gentler to all of us. Say it loud. I'm mad and I'm proud.
So wow. Sorry, I have to take a minute. So we're going to take a little minute in our speeches and have some musical stylings of Route 7.
Yay, Route 7!
Four, check 5.
Check 6, check 7, check 8, check 9.
Not going to do that. Check, check. Better. Check. Check, check, check. No. Check, check. How about that? There it is. There it is. Check 5.
I broke something I'll never get back. Brought me to my knees. A head like steel and a soul of gold and a heart that's made of glass. But mine's cracked.
Hey, my name is Mary Kate, and we are Route 7. We have a couple songs left here. If you would like to learn a little bit more about us, you can follow us on all of the social medias. On Instagram, we are Route 7BT, ROOT 7BT, and Route 7 on Facebook. Thank you so much for all coming out on this beautiful day, and we hope you enjoy the rest of our show.
Hi everyone. So once again, we are Route 7. I'm Chris. This has been my first ever Mad Pride, and it has been absolutely wonderful. It has been such an honor serving on the Mad Pride Planning Committee, and it's been so wonderful to bring Route 7 to all of you and let me have this opportunity to share this amazing group of singers that I get to sing with. We wanted to thank Joe for all the support here with our sound today. I wanted to thank Wilda and Match Freedom for this event, and for everyone here for coming out. It really means a lot, and thank you so much. We have one last song for you, and happy Mad Pride, everyone.
Well, you come down to me and you bet I felt. I tried to beat you, but you fell down. I fell right through the cracks. Now I'm trying to get back. Before the cold I'm running, I see you giving my best. Just enough gonna stop me, but divine intervention. My back is again high. Doing something, run some, but I won't hesitate no more. It cannot wait. I'm yours.
People killing, people dying, children hurt, giving right. Can you practice what you preach, or will you turn the other cheek? Mother, 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 help us, send some guidance from above. People got me questioning, oh, where is the love?
Open up your mind and sing like me. Open up your plans and then you're free. Look into your heart and feel the love. Listen to the music of the moment, people dance and sing. We're just one big family, and it's our God-forsaken right to be loved. So children hurt, no more. He cannot wait. I'm sure this will be
People got me questioning,
I'm yours.
where is the love? Where is the love? Where is the love? The love, the love. Where is the love? Oh, where is the love? Where is the love? The love, the love.
I've been spending way too long checking my tongue in the mirror. My face looks up, trying to see you clearer, but my breath fogged up the lines. So I drew a new face and a line. Guess what I be saying? There ain't no better reason to rid yourself of vanities. Just go with the seasons. It's what we aim to do. Our name is our virtue. I won't hesitate. No more, he cannot wait. I'm yours and I will.
People killing, people dying, children hurt, no more. You practice what you preach, I'm turn the other cheek. Mother, 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 help us, send some guidance from above. People got me questioning,
I'm
where is
yours.
the love? People killing, people dying,
No crying anymore. I'm sure. Cause I don't blame it, sure. I'm yours. Where is the love? Where is the love? Where is the love? The love, the love. So please don't, there's no need to come. But where is the time is short. Where is the love? The love, the love. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
It is Sean, our keynote. So sorry. I apologize. I'm going to bring up our keynote, Sean, again. Sean Donovan. Hopefully I got that right. Thank you. I'm so sorry.
Wow, hello again. I'm hoping I won't lose my voice before the end of what I want to share with you. How are y'all doing? Did y'all get food? Do we have some extra food to share with people in the park maybe too? That would be awesome. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you so much to the Vermont Mad Pride committee for inviting me here, along with my band, two of the most important people in my life, to be playing music together. We're so thrilled to be here alongside, amazing speakers, a cappella performers, activists, artists, and certainly other friends of mine too. So this means a lot. I did write shit down, but I just want to be really honest in the theme of Mad Pride that last week I was a tearful mess, and I thought I couldn't do anything at all anymore in my life. And I think that's part of Mad Pride, right? Like owning the shit and still moving forward and coming out to community. So very cool to have this event to be at. So thank you for that. I am going to read off a paper because there's a lot of things I want to get to without taking too much of your time. But I'm going to try to be animated, all right? So I'm also going to do some a cappella, but it's not going to sound as nice, I'm sure. So I actually remember Vermont Mad Pride in 2019. I was grateful to be there pre-pandemic. So let's give a applause for the last Mad Pride Vermont. I remember marching through the center of Brattleboro with many people I'd struggled alongside, advocated with, and then there was a prophetic Tyrannosaurus Rex, from what I remember. Does anyone else remember that? Or was it just me seeing things, who knows? Doesn't matter. Okay, Eric and I were seeing the same thing. So I remember this T-Rex proclaiming the need for psychiatry to undergo a similar extinction as himself. It was a highlight for me. And I also remember on a personal note sharing about the last time I was locked in a psych ward 2 years prior, which happened to be right behind the gazebo that we were sharing speeches from. And so I just thought about, it's amazing how a change in perspective can bring back experiences not yet remembered. I don't know if y'all have that experience too, but when I was at this gazebo, actually physically above the institution, because it's on like a cliff, I think, I thought about my journey to that place. While many of the elements of that journey were voluntary, there were elements that were not, as well as the constant threat of further restrictions and containment. I know a lot of people in this park know what that's like. So I'm not alone there. So during the hospital intake, I was questioned about harboring my own cell phone. Not news to any of y'all here, but it was one of the many other things that became contraband that are actually just like simple items, right, that we get to enjoy when we're not in places like that. But I was asked if I was harboring my cell phone on my body. And so I was honestly relieved to forfeit my cell phone because at that point, it had become a source of dread. With people texting needs that I couldn't fulfill any longer in my suicidal mess, and feeling paralyzed by the news teeming through it in the winter of 2017. I'm not sure if anyone else felt that way in January 2017. But despite sharing this with the intake clinician, he insisted on checking if I was quote unquote smuggling my cell phone. To get a bit graphic, under my genitalia or in between other below the belt areas. So basically, I didn't feel like I had an option to say no to this search. It was a reminder that how I conduct myself in this institution will open or close down my ability to have any autonomy over my body and not get stuck behind locked doors for longer. Sure, other people can relate to this too, but I remember resolving to put on a really composed and competent mask until I left a week later when I was released, even though I was feeling anything but composed or competent. For me, the real work of transformation began when I left that psych ward, and I had time to unravel and weave together parts of my life. I remember rejoining the Alternatives to Suicide group I'd facilitated and been part of for years. Has anyone been to an Alternatives to Suicide group before? Or know about it? Yeah, some people do. Okay. Awesome. So for me, it was a place where I'd often hear stories of pain, but also rage and anger, and it brought me back to these places for myself. I needed more spaces to express my anger, express my madness, and for some reason at that meeting, I was like, I need to start a punk band again, even though I am almost 30, but it's not that old. I'm older now. And so I wanted to just do an a cappella version of a song from my first band that I formed with Crystal, who's our bassist from Feminine Aggression, and some other people. And that band was called Chemical Bags, and that was a name that I took from someone in the group, and I asked if I could, take that. So, but this song is called Social Contagion, and I wrote this song with our band after the frustration of hearing time after time the suicide prevention industry saying it was like making, claims to save people, but it was really blaming people for their own pain instead of thinking about systemic solutions and deep empathy. So the song goes a little bit like this. You say I spread my misery, you say I spread my fears. You never even asked me if I'm acting out of fear. You fear I might rub off on you. You fear you are not enough. You say I'm the social contagion. I say you're the social contagion. And so that's to psychiatry, not you all. Yeah. So playing weekly with a band, with the exception of COVID, since 2017 has been a ritual of creative survival, an antidote to work that feels also necessary and yet always on the edge of burning me down. While I spent almost 10 years working with the Wildflower Alliance, much respect to Wildflower Alliance, with many beloved friends and colleagues pushing the boundaries of what's possible, I made the decision to leave that job in late 2021. While I left behind other weekly rituals of alternatives to suicide and mad and queer peer support groups, I'm grateful my near weekly rituals with feminine aggression and the peer support, creativity, and love of these moments remains a through line. In a training on nonviolent direct action I was in some years ago, I remember a trainer paraphrasing maybe that amazing lesbian Barbara Deming, saying that creativity is the opposite of violence. There are so many ways our current systems, policing, I see the police station over there, psychiatry, social services, and beyond suppress not only people living their lives more fully, but often stifle human creativity, both for the people working within, but especially for those being worked on within these systems. I remember spending time at a mixed forensic psych ward in Springfield, Massachusetts, when working with the Wildflower Alliance years ago, and coming off the unit shaking with rage often. So much of what clinical teams and courts enforced upon people held there against their will was not only disrespectful, inhumane, and narrow-minded, but it also was so destructive towards the creative ways people were trying to survive. One vivid memory I have is accompanying a friend there to a treatment team meeting. We were both eager for a clear account about what he needed to do for discharge. He'd been there for 4 years at that point. The first thing staff said was, quote unquote, have more reality-based conversations. By this they meant and clarified this would mostly involve him admitting and accepting he was schizophrenic. While on the contrary, he believed, and I did too, that he had the ability to connect with many people, living or dead, that no one else could see in the room, that gave him support and advice. What is reality in these exchanges, right? And how is it a single reality defined but with force and coercion so often? And why is that the case? I wrote these lines for the song Coercion Perversion. I did a version of it earlier, but everyone says I'm screaming. People can't hear the lyrics, so I'm just gonna redo it for you a little bit. But this was written after witnessing so many dead ends in the system like that with my friends Tanya and Crystal. Tanya's our drummer, by the way, awesome drummer, so much respect. So it goes like this. You think you got some little freedoms to say and do as you please. You'll find out it doesn't work that way if you're trying to question the rules of the day. So you'll take your pills to deal with social ills. Don't complain about being mistreated because you'll get nowhere you've been leaning. I'd like to make you do what I want you to. Don't try to use words that once had meaning because they'll get you nowhere you've been leaning. So there's some words from that song. But I was just so frustrated about hearing people and myself like constantly caught up in these bullshit things that a lot of people understand. So finally, I wanted to share what I'm doing for work now, which I alluded to earlier, which is both unique and part of a wave of changes emerging in communities who are thinking about the harm of policing in terms of law enforcement, but even in some cases in terms of social services, which also has policing embedded. These conversations were catalyzed, as many of us know, by the uprisings of the movement for Black Lives and focused on ways these systems principally harm Black, Indigenous, and other people of color, but also disabled, poor, houseless, queer, and trans folks and those labeled mentally ill. I've been part of a local conversation in Northampton, Massachusetts. That's Western Mass. Do y'all know where Northampton is? Okay, cool. I know it's not that far. So we've had a conversation similar to other cities about what we're going to do about this recognition, which we've known for many years, but it's coming to the forefront. So I was involved, focused on grassroots organizing, canvassing, and participating as a community member and presenter during this thing called the Northampton Policing Review Commission. It was a 7-month, 56-meeting process that was appointed by the mayor and city council, but really only happened because about 600 or 700 community members showed up at city council and demanded change. So one of the recommendations that came out of this process was to create a city-based Department of Community Care that would house a new alternative first responder team working from the values of harm reduction and maybe even peer support. When the city of Northampton actually followed through and funded this new Department of Community Care in 2021 and posted for a transitional position for implementation director, I was feeling cautiously excited and hopeful that someone might be able to do something good with this role even while being in municipal government. And I think a lot of us are advocates who have tried to get the state to do things. And as Calvin and Cal acknowledged, like sometimes we just have to do it ourselves. So I was a little bit skeptical of like, where would this go? There are so many reasons I never thought I would apply for this role, those being included, but when the city extended the deadline to solicit more candidates, I checked in with some confidants of mine and I took the risk. I applied. Long story short, I just passed the 7-month mark in this role. So. Even though I cried my way through the entire last week and many others. And right now in July 2022, we're closer to launching this new alternative first responder team. I'll return to some final thoughts and words of humility about this process. There are so many that I don't have time for as well, but I want to turn to words from a song that Feminine Aggression began writing as a band before the pandemic began, but finished in those uncertain times, called Black Tourmaline. We did a version of it today, but I just want to speak the lyrics to you without feedback, distortion, that is. So, I completely want to shield your soul when life's got the best of you and makes feeling unruly. When the pain is human, you can look it in the eye, but when it just stares back and makes you want to die, just yell with me. We'll crush them with our waves. So that's the lyrics from that song. So I recall hearing some lively conversations at one of the first alternatives conference I attended. Anybody been to an alternatives conference here? Yeah, some of y'all? Okay, so it's like it used to be a national peer support conference. Many of us have very different opinions about it, but it existed and we did things there. You know, I remember being at my first alternatives conference, maybe it was 2013, and I was listening to older psych survivors. This might have even been the incomparable George Ebert from New York State and other people talking about the quote-unquote freak-out houses that they maintained in the earlier days of the mental patients liberation movement. To me, these sound, and this is probably the same era that Wildo was acknowledging Mad Pride beginning in, like the late 70s, early 80s, just to kind of found it, like, when was this happening? These sounded like peer respites that invited and encouraged big emotions and madness to unfold, and for people to move through these experiences rather than the suppression and coercion methods to subdue within the mental health system. I thought about this conversation for years, and I also remember this anecdote after my last psych ward stay, where instead of a clinical retreat, maybe I was yearning more for a freak-out house. While I have these spaces nowadays, like even transitory, with solidarity friends and peer support spaces with my band, I know that not everyone has access to these resources. I wonder, and I really do wonder, I don't have the answers to this, what's possible in carving out that freak-out house moment within our current systems of public health and public safety? Is this a fool's errand? No shade to fools. We love fools here. Is this a project ripe for co-optation? I'm figuring this out. These are questions I'm still trying to answer in my current role. I've been trying to stay connected to grassroots and harm reduction groups locally as I work on what institutional changes are possible. What I know from these connections and my own experience is that mutual aid and even nonprofit groups resisting the status quo are often at the brink of collapse and under-resourced, and this shouldn't be that way. I'm hoping that with the Department of Community Care in Northampton supporting a new alternative first responder team and also funding and sharing workshops about non-coercive supports, including public events, we might make an impact on culture shifts that can alleviate some of the added stress that these groups are under all the time, while not replacing these groups because a municipal-based solution cannot replace these supports. And I just want that to be clear. So to carve out a different resource within public safety, this non-co-responder, meaning like our team wouldn't go along with police, we'd be separate from police, and that matters. Because if we have just social workers going with police, it's more of the same shit, right? This independent team we're developing is provisionally called Community Responses for Establishing Safety Together, or CREST. The work of setting a clear foundation for this team within the city and trying to stay connected with people as wide-ranging as drug users, advocates, houseless musicians, the local police chief, the mayor, peer advocates, clinical crisis workers, community center workers, hospital administrators, emergency dispatchers, and business owners is daunting. I feel exhausted just by saying that shit. Yet I feel like I'm seeing more angles of what's possible in our local community and our local context, creating more barriers to harm and creating more relevant first responder resources. Because I'm in Burlington and I'm not from here, I wanted to give some shout outs to connections that go beyond the local too. I've been connecting with people far from the local as well in this process too. One of the most insightful connections I've made has been with Shir Hassan from Interrupting Criminalization. And if you don't know about this group, check out their work, support them. They're a group that if you're interested in redefining public safety and even and especially pushing for abolition, they're really good to know. They're online. So while I can't hold the torch of abolition in my current role, I'm grateful to Shir giving me some feedback as someone who is at heart, myself and herself included, a harm reductionist, and I am underqualified formal education-wise for my current role. But she said to me one time, it's like you're working on institutional level harm reduction while working within the current system. I truly hope that I and the people working alongside me can in some ways live up to this possibility. Shira also incidentally connected me with someone in Burlington, Vermont that I didn't know before this, who's working on some amazing harm reduction works in the justice system. So she didn't say if I could share what she's doing, so I'm just gonna leave it open-ended. But I know that Burlington is also exploring these alternatives in some amazing ways, and some of the people that already spoke are part of that in Vermont. So I'm a little bit over 15 minutes, and I know y'all would love to probably go home and hear some other speakers first. So I just want to leave you with a couple more thoughts. There are a couple quotes that I return to often lately that I want to share with you. The first is from Miriam Kaba, who is an incredible Black woman organizer, thinker, and abolitionist who also co-founded Interrupting Criminalization. And please check out her other work too. She wrote a great collection of her essays called We Do This Till We Free Us, which I really recommend. It's a great read. She quotes her mom a lot, which is actually similar to something my mom says, so it's kind of close to my heart, saying, "Nothing that we do that is worthwhile is done alone." This is crucial to making sure the right people in a community are present to help make important decisions as much as it is important to create relationships of solidarity across places. So it's really cool to be in Burlington with you today. The second is from the late and great transgender warrior and revolutionary communist, Leslie Feinberg, who wrote years ago that my right to be me is tied with 1,000 threads to your right to be you. This reminds me in times when there is great chauvinism and greed in this country. I think Cal acknowledged that, other people have too. We have a lot of nasty shit happening in the world. That the work of bringing into being the world we want alongside the wonder of experiencing Mad Pride are not solitary acts. We're all here together, right? I don't think I would say, I did speak this speech into a mirror earlier and I didn't feel as nice, just to make sure it was timed, but it matters that we're all here today and like giving space to each other. So, and these acts are ones that tend to and strengthen these threads that can hold a world we could not imagine alone. So thanks for letting me share these words. Yeah, and I wanted to just say, yeah, it's really meaningful to be here with people that I've known for a decade in some cases, and doing work, entering the system in a new way is fucking scary. I just want to like name that. It's not light. And I don't even know where it's going, but I have some really good ideas that something good's going to come out of this. So I look forward to staying in connection with all of y'all in Vermont. I feel like in some ways it's my second home. I've been coming up here for a while. So thank you all. Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you so much, Sean. And now I want to bring up Jody Gerard. I hope I'm not butchering that name. She's going to read some of her poetry. Thank you so much, Jody.
Hello. So I have just a few words and then I have a couple poems. Poet E. Cummings said, "To be nobody but yourself in a world which is doing its best night and day to make you everyone else means to fight the hardest battle that any human being has fought and never stop fighting." So I put that under my yearbook picture in my senior graduating class. And I didn't really live it. I hid my symptoms because I was ashamed, I blamed myself, I named myself inferior, and I lived hiding. 10 years ago, I went to a LISM. Has anyone heard of a LISM? It's a peer-run farmhouse retreat in Rochester, Vermont. And anyone who is a Vermont resident and has emotions can go free. And there I said no more. And I went to the river and I screamed and I raged and I talked with peer support people. And we acknowledged that we have really high days. I have manic moments. And I have days where I have a shawl of withdrawal that I cling to and I hide beneath. And then I have days where I'm okay. And that is okay. So I wrote a book of my memoir. It's called Living with the Neighbors. And I have some here today if anyone wants to come and check it out. But it's a memoir of me living with my difficulties here in Vermont and trying to get help and not knowing what to do. And being okay, that there's hope and that I wasn't okay. It's called Living with the Neighbors because every day I have neighbors in my life. Those are auditory hallucinations that I hear every day that I cannot get away from. And so my book is called Living with the Neighbors, as if it was just through a wall, just something that I happen to have. And so 10 years ago, I said, I'm not gonna hide that I hear voices anymore. I'm not gonna curl up in bed and pretend that I don't have this realistic symptom. I freely affirm with all that I hear voices, want no more choices for me to hide, for I confide to you all, I am none too small to evoke change. I can arrange my beliefs, my reliefs into courage to urge others to stand and revoke the stigma from life's trauma survived. And I dismiss the baseless accusations, the irrational sensation that I am not enough. No longer will I stuff myself into the confining boxes I used to pack myself into. I relish the view of me in this place, traces of sadness, madness, and meaning gifted into the universe written of me in my words and verse. I nurse my wounds, hold myself tight in the care all deserve, the nerve to be loud, allowed to cry out that I am here, off-centered, yet delightful and successful. I have been hurt, I have been deserted, I have pulled back the curtains, certain that I will now be seen. I mean to impress upon those still in despair's stealth, their help hidden behind a lock without the right key. Let me share, declare that I live along with madness, but there is so much more. And before you can doubt, I shout out that you are not, you are you, even with the tint of sadness, brought some more in the messages that you are not right. We are still a sight to behold, a mold that can shape, can form impressions that fight stigma, fight shame, and end the blaming. We are the mighty effect of life lived, who can begin with a word created, fated to share. I have a poem that I wrote called Natural Order, and I'm going to read it to you. I clip the bush out front, snip branches too long, the ones that don't conform to the shape, the style, the moment I'm trying to make of the front yard. The blades zip together, sharp in their cuts. As I continue to pare the leaves, the withered, the dead, for my life could be the springtime of this plant, the flowering bud, the rich green of each leaf, the dark soil feeding, the water quenching, and I could be okay to be okay. I don't have to hurt over the years that the bush didn't grow, didn't make a statement for the yard. I cut and prune, careful in my design. In with the breath, I cast off the unwanted like the trauma, littering the ground with it, molding my perfection. I stand back to admire and realize there will always be more to take away. Perhaps I can let it go back to the wild living, creating its own way to be, happy in the wonder of itself. I close my scissors. Let them rust. Let the beauty be in its living. I sit with sunglasses on, protecting my view as I watch the natural order take care of my yard, and it's okay. We're all children here, running through the fields of life. We're all here together, sharing this moment, mad pride. And I want to just close with this. It's called Running Through the Fields. We are all children running through the fields of life. Some on worn paths, some in tall grass, still others rolling in wildflowers. But we are all here together, running through the fields of life. And some, the ones who see beyond the fields, they catch themselves in laughter and make chains of dandelions to wear upon their heads, casting off shoes to run barefoot in the wide variety of possibilities. There's a lot of possibilities in life, and I am Jody. I am nobody but Jody, and Jody hears voices, and that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jody. And now I'm going to call up Sarah Launderville. Sarah. And look at the trip happening.
Hey everybody, how's it going out there? Hi! You having a good time?
Yeah!
It is so wonderful to be with you all here today. It's comforting and beautiful coming together like this. Taking a moment to say we are worth it.
Yeah!
We are rejoicing in this splendor of who we are and in this moment of joy. Most importantly, today we celebrate. We celebrate our madness. We celebrate our connections. We celebrate our uniqueness and our commitment to one another. And most importantly, we celebrate the people of our movement. We celebrate one another so that we may come out of the shadows and just be. And we celebrate our purpose and our drive. I understand firsthand how it's often simply hard to stop and celebrate when so many things need to be different and better, and there are so many things that need to be said. And today we're not making that choice. It's okay to celebrate and still want to call out all the anger and sadness we've experienced in this world. Tears in a system that needs not only to be mended, but to thrown out and start anew. Information that draws awareness to laws and policies that have and continue to hurt people like you and I. And these are one of those moments of joy that I look for in my life. Looking out and knowing and seeing this action that we have collective power. We, our collective experiences of often being told by society that we shouldn't have families, have jobs, live on our own, that we need to be fixed, and that our experiences are not normal. We come together and we know that's just not true. Together we have power and we'll fight the fakeness of society telling us that we don't. And we are celebrating all of that today. Celebrating a future that is stronger because of our influences. And through this celebration, we make a promise to those future generations, taking our shared struggles and influencing important and needed change. And we celebrate that work, that advocacy, and that power. Who we are, and we are proud. Our pride is not confused with happiness or joy, but pride simply in being who we are. And for that, we all celebrate. My heartfelt love to you all. And as I leave today, I hope you remember, embrace, and hold on to the love of our movement and those moments of joy that we've captured in celebrating today. Thank you.
So now I'm going to bring up Hillary Melton, and I apologize if I butcher your names. I'm horrible at it.
No, you got that one right.
So I'm going to do it soon. I just know it, but I have to do those disclaimers. You're welcome. Please watch your browser.
Hello.
Hello.
That was very exuberant, Sarah.
She leaned into the mic.
She did. All right.
Lean in, Hillary.
I'm going to lean in. Thank you all for still being here in the heat and all of that.
You're welcome.
This was one of the best organized events that I've ever been to.
Yeah!
Extremely well organized. A few days ago, I even got a tip sheet for speakers about what to talk about or what not to talk about, and I was advised to talk about celebration because this is a day of celebration. Thank you, Sarah. You did a very good job. You got the note. You got the memo. But I had to regroup a little because what I wanted to talk about was this past legislative session, which Calvin mentioned. We had an effort to get more peer respites in the state, and in our state budget of over $8 billion, we were asking for $5 million, which is 0.065 of a percentage of that money, so that we could have more respites around the state, and we were squashed. I was in rooms with senators where they talked about those people being me and us. I was in rooms where senators talked about those violent people, and we were not funded. But I'm not going to talk about that today. And I wanted to talk about Adam. Adam, who's 28 years old, who grew up in poverty and trauma, and he's been in and out of psych wards and in and out of jails and experienced long years of homelessness. And Adam represents hundreds and hundreds of Vermonters, and he represents hundreds of thousands of Americans across the country, hundreds of thousands that we have failed and continue to fail. But I'm not going to talk about that today. And I wanted to talk about a friend of mine who spent 3 months in a psych ward that I visited a couple of weeks ago in the psych ward. She was beaten down and broken. They had taken, it still surprises me to this day, they'd taken away every natural support that she had. Her phone, her laptop, her online community. She is completely attached to her dog. She did not see her dog for 3 months. How can you get well in that situation? I brought her a journal, a beautiful journal she loves to write, with one of those satin threads stuck in the binder. You can, do the pages, know where you're in the page. I gave her the binder, the journal, and her face lit up. And the person in charge that day, who was in the room because we couldn't meet alone together, looked at the journal and looked at the ribbon, and she pulled on the ribbon from the journal, and she said, "I'm sorry, this is a safety hazard. She can't have it."
Unbelievable.
And in my head, I was begging, please, let her have the journal. But I'm not going to talk about that today. I'm going to talk about, in this wave of pain, injustice that we all live in, there are in fact some bright spots. There are many bright spots. Every single one of you here today is a bright spot. So I appreciate you showing up. I appreciate you caring. I'm going to tell you about soteria houses. How many of you have heard about soteria houses? Woo! Soteria houses are places that are an alternative to hospitalization. They're a home-like setting. They're a place that somebody can go when they're in distress. They are staffed by people with lived experience of hearing voices, lived experience of psychosis, lived experience of being labeled with schizophrenia. You can go to this place when you're in distress, and you can enter rooms full of empathy and love and understanding. There are soteria houses in Europe. There are 3 soteria houses in Israel, and they're about to open 6 more. And in the United States of America, there is 1 soteria house. It happens to be in Burlington, Vermont. Go Burlington. So that is a good thing. And I want to read 3 quotes from people that have stayed at that soteria house to give you a flavor of what the future should look like. First quote: "There's something really extraordinary about getting to be with other people who have experienced things like you. Things that sometimes feel isolating and so lonely. There is a lot of power in being part of a community that is ready to stand beside you." Second quote: "Once you're put in the system and you're labeled, it can be shattering to individuals and who we are and what we think about ourselves. That's what's great about soteria. When you step in there, they don't treat you like you're wrong or broken. They treat you like a person, and you have these experiences, and they are profound. Rather than saying, you're crazy, without these pills, you're going to not function in the world altogether." The last quote, which I love: "In a hospital, you're a patient. In a police station, you're a suspect until proven guilty, in which case you're a prisoner. In soteria, you're a human being experiencing some stuff. That's how you're treated, and that's how it's viewed. There are no labels. You're not a diagnosis. You're not a commodity with no real value. You are a living, breathing, feeling human being. Today, I want to celebrate soteria. Thank you for your time."
So next I'm going to bring up Claire. Polito. See, I knew I was going to do it one of these times.
That's a tough name.
It is.
Hi there. My name is Claire Pladle, and that's hard all the time. So no worries about it. I'm here today on behalf of Disability Rights Vermont, where I began working only a few months ago, and it's been very, very exciting to learn more about how the systems work here, because they don't always. That's my own ad lib, by the way, not Disability Rights Vermont. I am so happy to be here today, so thank you to Mad Freedom and the numerous sponsors who helped put on this great event. Disability Rights Vermont is the protection and advocacy agency for the state of Vermont. We're also the state's mental health care ombudsman, designated by the governor. So in these roles, DRVT monitors mental health care across the state. So we can go into the community, in residential settings, hospitals, and in prisons. Anywhere that clients who receive mental health care services are, we can go. So we also work with individuals to gain and maintain employment, to empower themselves, and to make choices through advanced directives, and even have equal access to voting opportunities. So during some of this monitoring and outreach work that I've been doing, we've spoken with people who are institutionalized and felt stuck. They weren't receiving the care that the law requires that all Vermonters get, namely care in the least restrictive setting in their community. While this is a day of celebration, of pride to be part of the MAD community, DRBT hopes that this celebration will also motivate one another to forge ahead together and continue to try to improve equal and appropriate access to care in people's communities. Someone should not have to get to a point of crisis before we provide services. It's critical to ensure all people can access all services they need when they need it and when they want it. DRBT believes there's room for improvement and change in how we fund the services that already exist. We should invest in financially supporting alternatives to institutions, enhance preventative care, and have a more holistic approach to caring for all Vermonters throughout their lifespan. The lack of a robust continuum of care polarizes the options that people have and leaves people fearful or unable to seek the health care that we all deserve. We understand that preventative care looks different for everyone. Therefore, we believe preventative care should be person-driven and based on choice. These services should embrace and celebrate diversity. People should be able to access care that's trauma-informed with providers who understand the risks of over-medicalizing mental health care. If a person seeks care for like high blood pressure or headaches, medication isn't the first thing that's suggested to them. They're likely encouraged to make changes to their diet, their exercise, sleep, other lifestyle habits. They're looked at holistically. The same approach should be true of addressing the needs of someone with a psychiatric diagnosis. DRBT takes pride in its opportunities to learn from members of the MAD community, to work together, and to grow together. With all that COVID-19 has done to our state's infrastructure, now's the time to reevaluate how we treat mental health care and where we treat it. DRBT thinks this is a critical time to really be thinking outside the box and demand change. We are all in this together. We're so grateful for the many people in the mental health community and the MAD community in general who are already doing the work to serve Vermonters in an accessible, inclusive way. Mental health should be important to all of us. It's on all of us to keep working towards a better system. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a lot of resources and a lot of squishy balls, stress balls over there and stickers and stuff, so come see us.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to bring up Ken Russell. Ken, are you in the building?
Ken's in the house.
That's a building, right?
Oh, he's in the canopy.
Hey everybody,
Hi, Ken.
glad to be here.
Glad you're here.
Got a lot of people here, all spread out and dispersed. Really am grateful to be here. What a wonderful bunch of beaming bits of light, and I love being connected with you all. I love this work. I love being able to work on being a better human in its whole range. I love being able to celebrate being pissed off at why things aren't better. I love being able to celebrate grittiness, ugliness, messiness. I love being able to celebrate loving human beings who are disguised as scary people to most of society. I'm ab-libbing here, ab-libbing here. Lives are at stake. We have folks coming in who are beautiful human beings, who are wonderful to talk to you if you could have a little bit of patience and a little bit of humanity. And at the end of the day, they're out back on the streets and they end up in the hospital, they end up in prison, they end up dead. So I want to celebrate our ability to meet these challenges, to be able to work together on our common humanity and really take seriously the plight of all of us. Not just the people behind the white picket fences, not just the people in the bureaucracies, not just the people in the nice nonprofit suites. And I don't want to be a jerk about this. I want to celebrate. I'm stealing one of Hillary's things here. I'm not here to talk about the bad stuff. No, but it's all true, I think. It really is wonderful, the human connections that happen when you really drop down with somebody and you really accept the maybe vivid ways that we all present ourselves, the maybe ways that could be antisocial for folks. And we need imagination, we need determination, we need love for each other. We need to embrace each other. I should look at my words here. You know, I have to say something. I am an ally, and I don't like labels. I've had my own challenges that you could call mental health challenges. I've had very dark moments. I've had very difficult times of challenging with things. And people say, well, you're not a psychiatric survivor because you haven't done X, Y, Z. And I don't know. I never take away from the experience that other people have. I have empathy. I have my own reality, my own experience. And life isn't fucking easy. Life is fucking challenging, even if you have lots of privilege. And I'm really concerned about what's happening in this world. I'm really worried about the worst passions of mob mentality doing terrible things to each other. So we have to be intentional about how we are together. As a lot of people have said, there are a lot of beautiful moments in all of this, and we have to be smarter about how we dance together, how we be together, how we be better bureaucrats, better nonprofit people, better people behind the white picket fences, and think with imagination and really a dedication to each other and the well-being of all. Thank you. I love you all. Bye.
I promise this is the last time I'm coming up. But I warned you I was coming up again to say thank you, because you can never thank people enough. And I want to thank again our Trailblazer sponsors, Disability Rights Vermont, LNW Design, UVM Health Network, VAMHAR, Vermont Center for Independent Living, and Vermont Psychiatric Survivors. I also want to thank our allies, Howard Center, and particularly Linda Nelson, who was a driving force to get that donation, is my understanding. Pathways Vermont, Mental Health Initiative, a program of United Way of Northwest Vermont, who really showed up for us, and so many thanks to that initiative. Vermont Developmental Disabilities Council. I'm sorry, but I have to thank my own consulting firm, which is also an ally, Wildell White Consulting.
Thanks, Wilda.
You're very welcome. Our partners, American Academy of Pediatrics, the Vermont chapter, Another Way Community Center, Vermont Association of Hospital and Hospital Systems, the Vermont Department of Public Safety, Vermont Student Assistance Corporation. And our supporters, the Center for Health and Living, Counseling Service of Addison County, Parker Advisors, LLC, the principal of who is Dan Towle, who's sitting out in the audience, the Vermont Cooperative for Practice Improvement and Innovation, Vermont Medical Society, and Vermont State Colleges. And I also want to thank our contributors, Patrick Leduc, Monica White, who's heads up an agency, who said her agency couldn't support us, but she wanted to support us personally, so she gave us a donation. And I also want to thank City Market, who we asked for a big donation, but they gave us a $50 gift certificate, which came in very handy because that actually paid for the ice. So thank you, City Market. And they got it right back because we bought the ice from them. Those are my thank yous. Thanks very much to the Planning Committee. It was an honor and a joy to work with you on this. Thank you very much to all of our volunteers. And thank you to everybody who showed up here today, who stood in the street and yelled, hey, hey, ho, ho, this narrow normal has got to go. What do we want? Mad Pride. When do we want it? Right now. Be well. Woo.